Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I cannot express how thrilled I am to have you again with us in the series of conferences aimed to influence, organized by the Regnant, the Literary Club of National Institute of Technology, Sikkim. And in this third episode of Conference 2.0, with uttermost respect, I, as your Sony, take the privilege to welcome today's speaker, Mr. Amal Kumar Pandey, who is one of the brilliant minds of NIT Sikkim. Graduated in the year of 2018 from the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering. Sir is currently designated as a BIOS engineer at Intel Corporation with server platform BIOS and server SoC system debugging as his areas of expertise. He was also one of the training and placement cell coordinators. Along with that, he attained the astonishing accomplishments of securing second rank in his department from the batch of 2014 to 2018. With his glorious educational background, he has also acquired many experiences, honed his skills, and successfully completed 4 internships, and subsequently we will talk about them. But now the Regnant team wants to take a moment to thank our guest. So thank you so much, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you so much, all my juniors. And actually, truly speaking, I'm feeling honored and privileged to have been invited to join your conference meet. And thank you very much for inviting me.
So it's our honor to have you, sir. Before we get started with numerous questions and answers, I want to request you to provide us an overview of your current job.
Okay, so right now, actually, I'm working in Intel as a BIOS engineer, specifically for the SoC platforms. Previous to it, I joined Intel as an intern in 2017 October after my third year, and then got converted into regular employee. And then I joined Intel as a BIOS engineer, and afterwards working for 1.5 year transition to SoC's server platform, where I started working as system debug engineer. So actually, uh, uh, I started with the BIOS team, but somehow I got into SoC server platform team as a debug engineer. But before to that, let me give an overview. So, like there would be a lot of phases in any of the chip design, and then getting it embedded into the platform, and then getting it out into the market. So, starting from the silicon fabrication, before that people RTL team and the silicon design team does designing part, and then they send that particular design to the fab team, and then fab team will be fabricating the silicon chip depending on the all the specs which will be provided and the requirement of that particular project. And then afterwards it comes to the silicon core silicon, and the platform comes to our team. So our job, truly speaking, starts not only from post-silicon phase, but also starts with the pre-silicon phase itself, because when RTL team and the silicon design team would be designing those chips, will also be parallelly going with the simulated model of BIOS coding. So there's top secret Intel code, the BIOS code. It uses for its own chipset, and there'd be standard. Some of things will be standardized, with respect to the EDK or UFI firmware. And apart from that, Intel will also be having few of its IPs, specifically for Intel platforms only. So truly speaking, my job when I joined Intel, I ramped up on BIOS part. BIOS, you might have heard very bit of it. Just the full form, if you know, that would be very much in our undergrad actually.
Yes,
so
sir.
you would be saying you'd be saying that basic input output system. That's it. What we know about BIOS. Afterwards, we start always from OS loading. Once OS loads, we are fine. We'll be doing everything from there itself. We don't even worry about all the things which are going in getting that platform up with the help of BIOS code. So
Yes.
like BIOS is kind of system firmware which will be flashed in a flash chip, which will be of 32 MB or 64 MB depending on the architecture, and the functionality is going to be opting for a particular project or for a particular SoC program. Then what happens in that is this silicon it starts booting from scratch. Like one reset vector will start booting up, and then it will be having all those platform initialization done, like memory initialization, then iOS subsystem initialization, and a lot of security. In parallel to that, a lot of security phases will also start. So in that sense, it will try to get the platform up. I'm just truly speaking, I'm just giving the very high level overview of what actually BIOS does.
Yes, sir.
So then it will be after initializing the full platform, it will be giving the control to the OS with the help of bootloader. So just before OS, what we know as a CS or any CS oriented undergraduate student is about bootloader and then getting into OS. Before that, actually BIOS does everything, and then it gives the control to OS to be able to use the peripherals or the components which it will be availing to the OS after bootloader loads. So that's what is the role of BIOS. Now there'll be a lot of phases in the BIOS initialization. I think that's not going to be the part of this discussion because it's not going to be completely technically oriented. But yeah, I can give you the overview, like SEC, PEI, then DXC, and then various phases will be involved into getting this all BIOS code and the peripherals and the components initialized with the memory and all. So that's what is the role which is being played by the BIOS person. So actually, I worked for customer platform BIOS, which is different from the reference platform, because Intel will be actually developing all these platforms which are known as reference platforms, which will be having the core part of it, the Intel ingredients, and then would be actually shipping it to the customers or OEMs, original equipment manufacturers. We call it as HP, Dell, and all those vendors will be ultimately giving their systems to the customers or the server systems to the customers directly, or to the enterprises depending on their own business model. So actually we used to support all those requirements. We are having reference BIOS code, then we'll be writing few of the, or just trying to integrate few of the drivers or few other patches with respect to what that particular OEM requires. And in that sense, I was supporting there. And with that, a lot of other issues used to come, like we need to get this knob exposed from the BIOS. When you'll be going to BIOS page, I don't know if you people have visited to that. Of course, you might have always gone to the BIOS boot menu. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So you'll be having a lot of BIOS options. So you can disable or enable those options. So actually, we used to expose those options to be able to use the feature for a particular customer. So that's what is
well said.
and afterwards, sorry for taking it too long.
No, sir, please.
Actually, then afterwards, I started working in SOC platform team, which is Geondi based platform, where I started working as a debug engineer. So debugging is something like starting from a reset vector till the OS boot, only till the OS boot. It means that if any problem is there in between, the customers, the Intel customers, I mean, Intel will be consisting of a lot of other groups, other teams as well. Will be every team will performing their separate tasks. Like few of them will be IP specific teams, and few of them will be the whole platform specific team. Like ours will be the sysdebug platform sysdebug team. Parallel to that, a lot of IP debug teams will also be there. So starting from scratch, lot of firmwares like IFI image will be there. IFI is nothing but integrated firmware image, which will be having a lot of firmwares with respect to other components like memory and ME, managed melody engine, innovation engine, and then we'll be having a BMC controller, power management controller. So we'll be having PMC firmware. So if you will consist of a lot of firmwares, so in the booting process, if any problem comes, they will simply directly go to the platform sysdebug forum until they'll raise and just and then internally will be given those issues to be debugging those. So and then after, if I find that okay, this issue is gonna be memory specific or microcode specific or any other ingredient specific, then I'll be I used to actually approach to the US people or the Polish people, Poland and the Israel So actually our team works in such a fashion, like 4 or 5 countries will be working together to be able to get that particular project or program up. So specifically if we asking, I'll be telling you further.
Okay, sir. So actually, from your words, it has been seeing that like your glimpse of your 2 years experience in end-to-end system debugging, the Intel Xenon these SoC platforms, and the 1 year experience of your server platform BIOS support to OEMs. So thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful explanation. And it really sounds very interesting. So we are very eager to know more related to this. So in continuation, so if someone wants to be a BIOS engineer, so what are the skill sets required for being a BIOS engineer?
Actually, that is very interesting question that you asked from me. So let me tell you a bit about my background. So I till 12th of my 12th standard of mine, I had never used computer system. I had seen, but I had never used computer system. I had heard of C programming and Java programming because one of my brother was doing BCA, and then I used to just hear about C or Java. I actually never given my attention to those things. I had an option to go with the CS subject in my 12th standard, but I went with English. So because I had interest in literature, so that's why I went with English. So thereafter, when I reached to college, suddenly C programming comes directly without having any background with respect to what this all computer system consists of, like all the peripherals, input output devices. So till that time I had no idea about how to go with that. So I didn't actually perform well in the C programming, truly speaking. And actually I'm from PC background, so of course I had never intended to do so, but everything came suddenly to me. So and the interview process also very kind of was quite amazing to us. Like we were doing our internship in the Bangalore, and then suddenly we got the information like we're gonna be getting interviewed to the by Intel. So then that's how we just give our interview, and we were not sure like whether we're gonna be selected at least for this team. So all of my friends from EC department got into RTL design, silicon design team. I'm the only person from EC background who got into this BIOS code and this data center specific team, where I had to work with the BIOS code. So why I got interested initially into it, because it had a lot of assembly coding, and being an EC person, we at least are good at assembly program, because it's going to be more machine specific or low level interface.
Yes,
So
sir.
we could be easily able to understand what could happen in the machine with respect to the opcode or the command which will be giving. So that's what just attracted me towards working in the embedded system, truly speaking. But luckily or unluckily, I don't know, I got into this BIOS, and truly speaking, I would say I luckily got into this. Just to give you your answer, there will be different paths which many of us would be taking to get to a particular position, or to a particular level, I would say. So like truly speaking, this is quite uh, specific to the person who does and at least knows a bit of programming in a good with a good practice. But I was not the person having a lot of practice of doing programming part. And truly speaking, right now too, I'm not having so much experience in the coding part at least. But I, of course, I had deep interest in the architecture, computer architecture part. So there from there itself, it this interest originated in me from inner side. Okay, let's see, because it attracted me, of course, a lot, like computer architecture. So that's how I got into this. But there's nothing that I can give you about what to do if you want to join as a BIOS engineer. But yeah, from EC background or from CC background, every person's role could be different in the BIOS team itself. So for EC person, I would say, please stick to your basics. First of all, you always have to go through your subjects very ardently, like the computer architecture or the information theory or any of the subjects, digital electronics. So just I would say one thing: please stick to the basics. Don't try to create a molehill of what all those thoughts which are always keep on coming in our minds. Please don't try to get yourself focused and concentrated towards what all subjects you are having, and whether you are interested in particular section of your all the curriculum. Like if you join as a bias engineer, of course you'll have to be good at this computer architecture part, at least basic C programming. I would not say that you have to be very proficient or very fast programmer when you're thinking of joining this BIOS team or any of the Formula team, I would say, because it's not at very top level like application level where you always have to give your time to programming and then to add the features there. So I would say just stick to the basics. Your basics should be quite clear, like what is going on in the computer system, the whole system with respect to all the peripherals, how a particular chunk of program is going to get executed internally to this this CPU. That's what matters a lot if you join the low level architecture team. So that's what I would say with respect to
Yes, sir.
that.
Thank
Yeah.
you, sir. Actually, sir, while you were explaining about all this, I was relating this to myself because I'm not even good at programming and I have never done programming in my school and till 12th. So when I went to in the first class and I was like, what is going on in the C programming? So much like syntax. I mean, their syntax is even a little separator creates an error for me, and it was so hectic for me to deal with that. So thank you so much for this answering this question. So, sir, well, in the beginning, I have mentioned that we will discuss about your internships as well. So, moving ahead with the same, I want to mention their names, and I will request you to kindly tell us about what you have done in it. Or anything you want to tell about that particular internship. So the first one was the internship at Center for Development and Advanced Computing, that is commonly known as CDEC. And you have done two internships there, one in May 16 and another in May 2017. So kindly tell us about that.
Yeah. So with respect to internship, you might be aware, like first of all, I would like to tell you that all the internships I got through the college itself. I have never, given any of the efforts from my end to get at least the internship, because I know that okay, my marks are good, so I'll be most probably getting at least if any of the internships coming to college, I'll be getting one of that. So that's why I got into CDAC. And that time itself we had gotten our supercomputer, which was very powerful in that particular northeastern region, which is supercomputer Kanchenjunga, I think. So Param Kanchenjunga, I just
Yes, sir,
guess.
Param
Yeah,
Kanchenjunga.
Param Kanchenjunga. So that time my name was given to the CDEC to be called for the internship. I went there and actually I learned about firstly about the Linux scripting. So that was the best part of that internship, because I was in second year of mine and just went there. At least for initial 15-20 days, I just simply was given to learn all those Linux networking commands, IO commands, memory commands, and then to create a few of the scripts, and then to analyze all other scripts which were there. And finally I was supposed to be working on a particular project where it was called as Mona Lisa. So monitoring tool which was based on the agents. So a lot of agents would be running at various interfaces like the IO, memory, and other components of that particular whole supercomputer. Like the supercomputer will be there, and they wanted to manage that supercomputer using a particular a kind of set of tools, which was known as Mona Lisa, and it was developed at Caltech. So they wanted to adopt to that particular monitoring tool. So there I was supposed to go through that particular Mona Lisa tool and had to give the insights of that particular tool to the person under whom I was assigned to work as an intern. So I had gone through the Mona Lisa monitoring tool completely and studied about that particular tool, and then presented to them how could it be beneficial over what they were using till that time, the tool to monitor the whole supercomputer. So that's what was my project, my internship inside there.
Okay, that's really sound interesting. So, sir, the second one is the internship at NISEC, Northeastern Space Application Center. So, what was that?
Yeah, truly speaking, the credit goes to my senior. One of my senior suddenly told me that, are you interested in doing internship in Space Center? That time I thought, okay, I'm going to be getting to ISRO or what? But he said then it is not Eastern Space Application Center, which actually comes under Department of Space directly parallel to the ISRO. Its job is a bit different. But okay, then I said, okay, let me check for the particular project. Actually, it was research oriented internship. So I was actually working under a scientist D or E level. I think his name was Manjunath, something like that. I'm sorry, I'm not sure of the name, but yeah, I had to, what I had to work there was to have the model created on the basis of one parameter at that time. When we were assigned, me and myself and one of my batchmate, Navneet Krishnan was there. So we were there. We had to design a particular model where we could forecast or predict the earthquakes, frequent earthquakes coming all the times across the globe, depending on the density calculation in the ionosphere, electron density calculation in the ionosphere. So that was completely new to us. I went there, had a lot of 3 or 4 papers from other professors from other universities like Assam universities and other universities from abroad. We had to go through their papers to understand what kind of parameters are there and how those parameters get disturbed in the ionosphere, or starting from the core of the earth and then till ionosphere, and then how do we have to measure the difference in electron density. So we actually were given to take the data, create Excel file, try to analyze the data. So we did very tricky part there. Actually, our mentor had thought, our scientist had thought, like we'll be consuming this whole month in getting into that particular data, and then we'll be analyzing that. That of course that was supposed to take a lot of time. But what I did is that I just spoke to my friend Navneet, and then I said, okay, let me create one MATLAB file. MATLAB is a script. Of course, we were good at MATLAB at that time. So what I did is that, because a lot of data was there with respect to time, frequency, and after in each and every 4 minutes there was a data. We had to firstly analyze the all data with respect to the earthquakes across the globe. Then we had to pick the location on which we are going to perform our analysis, and then we had to collect the data, take the data from the satellite. So actually there was a repository where people had accumulated the data. We had to take that and then had to analyze that data by creating Excel file at the time interval of 4 minutes. Then I said, okay, Navneet, we are not going to be able to do this, of course, and it is going to be quite hectic, because for 365 days we had to do so. So we went together and created the MATLAB script. It consumed 4 to 5 hours on that day, and actually in 4 or 5 days we had finished 2 or 3 earthquake observatory centers data. And then we went to him. He said, okay, you take other locations as well. Then we took 5 to 6 locations. Then we did the analysis, got completed in 15 days. Then actually kept on, because we were not getting the expected result, we had created the graph. A lot of research based that was completely. But what I learned there, to work in a kind of environment where people are working in Space Center, and how with what kind of granularity level they are performing at. Like they'll be doing a lot of analysis. Then if they are not getting the result, then always be researching for other parameters. So like we had started for the electron density in the ionosphere, and then we went for the geomagnetic field values from somewhere. We also got this data from NOAA for the quiet and peaceful days. I mean, like of course, there will be few quiet days. Well, there will be a lot of disturbance through, through the solar system, and also through our own geomagnetic or atmosphere of Earth. So in that sense, we had at least been able to analyze the data and present it to the director of NISAC. So that was what we had performed there.
Actually, sir, it also sounds quite interesting. I mean, environment affects us so good way. It helps us in so much better way. I guess, if possible, like we are here in the online mode and we are not getting so much options. But thank you for this information. We will definitely try if we could do this type of internships in future. So the third was one is your undergraduate intern at Intel Corporation. So tell us something about that.
Okay, yeah. So before going to have started that particular internship in Intel, I had done another internship then CDAC Bangalore, but that was focused on SCADA and automation, and that was also of not so much time. But yeah, I had gotten to know about a few of the basics about how this grid and command control works for this electricity distribution and all there. So, and then I got interviewed and then joined Intel and started actually working as a BIOS intern there under Louis Alapat, who was my manager. So truly speaking, when I joined Intel, then went there and got so much code, C code, assembly code. I had no idea, like millions of lines of codes were there. I had no idea about how to start, where to start from, and what it is all about. So before that, I had to go through the documents, which were like EDK document and UEFI firmware document. Those were like 1,000-page document. Of course, you cannot understand everything, or even at least I would say 5% of that. So then my job was to go through the architectural part or the flow of the BIOS from the reset vector, and then to create a BIOS full flow for any person to be able to understand how does BIOS boot or loads the particular component of the system in a particular hierarchical manner. So it was quite a learning experience, because I was able to see the Intel top secret code first of all, which was being used for so long, since its I would say inception around 1970, and then a bit of modification of course happened, because previously BAS legacy code was there, and then afterwards they started integrating C code, which took the model of UEFI firmware, BIOS afterwards. So there I started with, and afterwards I created BIOS flow there based on my understanding, whatever was there, like starting from reset vector and then doing the memory initialization for forecast to be able to for memory to be able to work, and then memory initialization will happen, and then all those core, uncore, and platform subsystem initialization would happen, and then it will in the boot device selection mode, BDS phase, it will be getting OS selected, whatever is there in any of the hard drives, and will be booting to OS. So starting from very low level till BIOS, bootloader, I had to create that particular flow, and then afterwards I was given a particular opportunity to work in the BIOS boot minimization or optimization, I would say. So like we'll be having like S3 or S4 phase in most of the PC computers if you might be using, then you'll be having a lot of sleep modes. So sleep modes also are having a lot of categories like S3 or S4 and S5 modes. So S3 and S4 modes were also already there, but what I was supposed to do is to, like in the server world, once the platform is up, no one wants the platform or the the whole computer to be down. I mean, like the whole server, they always want to be running because a lot of high-end processing and high-end modules would be always running in the server platforms. So what they asked, I mean, like what our objective was to, firstly, when we boot the BIOS, it will initialize each and every part of our platform subsystems. And then once the initialization is done, if we are supposed to switch it off and then switch it on again anytime in the future, so we thought that okay, few of the initialization are going to be always common, like PCI devices or PCI embedded slots which are there in the platform or in the SOC are always going to be initialized. So what we did, we created a context kind of patch where we'll be saving the data, the address of all those PCI devices and few memory devices, and then we'll be creating a particular file. We'll be saving it to the flash itself, like from where BIOS boots. So from next time, what it will do, it will skip that particular initialization and it will directly boot with the data which is there saved in the flash itself, because it is already configured, and then we'll be able to minimize the boot time. So that's what was my project
Okay,
there
sir.
as an intern. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, since we are talking about the internship, so can you suggest us, like, is there any internship opportunity that is available in Intel for the third year and fourth year EC students right now?
Actually, what I have always heard about here in Intel, that most of the undergrad interns are getting recruited through campus placement directly most of the times. I'll have to explore a bit more on that part, because I mean, like for MTech guys or for any graduate students who are coming from any of the institutes like private and plus NITs and IITs, of course, there are chances of getting those referred. But for this, I'll have to explore more on that part.
Okay, sir. So, sir, like,
Because let me explain to you.
yes, sir.
Here in Intel, actually this works pretty different. Like a lot of groups are there, a lot of teams are there. Many of the managers would be having the openings in their teams for various people. As far as if you're asking me about my own team, of course, my team's requirement or my manager's requirement, at least not to go with the interns, as what I know till now. But with respect to other groups or other managers, will have to go to the particular site where actually it used to get published, and then have to see there itself.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So, sir, like in this stage where I am today, we always get confused about choosing the area for making our career. So, is there the same situation with you as well? Like, what was the situation with you?
Yeah. So, truly speaking, I had no. I won't say that I had a dream, but that didn't work, and that doesn't work very often, I would say, because the point is that I never had thought of joining NIT, because I never knew about NITs. Do they exist? Because I belong to a very humble background, I would say, from the village, and I did my 10th standard from there itself, from government college. And truly speaking, the condition of the government college in respective states from state boards, not so good. Everyone
Yes,
knows,
it's
among
very,
us.
even we
So
can say that it's just worst, not good. It does not come in the good category.
yeah, right. So so there, even if you don't attend the classes, or if you don't go there, no one is going to be minding that. So what I ever heard of any kind of engineering to be existing there outside was polytechnic. So that's what I knew. Then I came to Allahabad, the first city which I visited at the age of 15 years. I started living here. So then I suddenly, after 1 year, I got to know about this NITs and IITs. Then I started preparing for this. One of my very senior told me that you can be good fit for this JEE Mains. You can go for that. Then I went for this exam. Actually, I had to drop, and then I had to prepare for coming here. And that's how I came here. Actually, when I left my home, I was sure that I'm going to be preparing for the civil services examination, and that at least continued in the college itself. The kind of inspiration I had since the beginning itself. But when I reached, college, and those things which were there were quite new and interesting to me. I was, first of all, the kind of diversity we had in our college, or used to have in our central or kind of all India level colleges is used. So a lot of learnings, not from technical part, but also from behavioral, from communication, and from interaction perspective. A lot of I had actually learned a lot about what is actually India. You'll be able to see the India in the night itself. Before that, I never knew. I mean, like, just heard about India through news channel and all. But when I joined with the night, then I got to know, okay, what is now. So there we had to start. So and actually, I always went with the flow. Always went with the flow. I never imagined that I'm getting into Intel, or at least I intend to get into Intel. Truly speaking, I had never thought of, first of all, going to any of the corporate work. I didn't like to, do. I know my, I think he might be teaching us doctor. So when he used to teach us this quantum mechanics, he used to tell me that, Amal, you're not supposed to work in the corporate. What would you be doing there? You should be going to any of the higher institutes or level institutes to pursue your masters or the research. You're not supposed to be working there in corporate. And that's what I also felt in my heart. But because of some of the uh, I would say circumstantial situation, I had to take at least one job, but that was not supposed to be kind of corporate or IT sector. If it is R&D, if I can explore in my interest areas, like Intel provides a lot of things. I mean, like, Intel itself is a group of companies. Is a group of companies. A lot of things, like if any person is interested in IoT, can join Intel. If any person is interested in AI, can join Intel. If any person is interested in IT, of course. If any person is interested in computer world, PC world, or server world, any of other things like machine learning and all, can join Intel. So I think it provides every person the kind of platform they are supposed to be working for. But you have to decide on your own what you want to work for firstly. Then only you'll be able to get into any of the technical tech companies like Intel, or any of big global companies. So that's what I feel. I simply went with the flow. I never, whatever thought I'd say never worked, or I'd say I have never thought of anything, totally speaking, that I have to do this, or I have to do that. Yeah.
Yes, so it is something like our daily routine. We plan whatever, and it goes on some other path. So, thank you so much, sir, for this explanation. And so we have heard that you were the second rank holder in the EC department from your batch. So, what, according to you, what's like how much grade matters for getting a job? Like, what's the value? Someone says that you have to be your grade must be greater than 7.5, 8.5, or something like that. So for getting a job in Intel, how much grade matters?
Okay, so let me tell you a few of the points. Actually, it varies from person to person, fully speaking. For my, in my case, few things I had always thought in my mind, that I'm not good at management, of course. So I'm not going to be able to get any of the internships on my own by keep on, pinching a person or keep on mailing a person time and again. Even if I have good idea, I'll not be able to do that part. Like, the networking part is not so good of mine. I would accept that. It could be bad thing in me, or some bad quality, but of course I'll have to accept what is there. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to be able to score well, at least any of the internships coming through the college would be provided to me, will be given the priority to at least join there. Then for that sake, actually, I had to maintain my marks. was I had never thought like I'm gonna be the topper of the EC branch, or I have to be nothing of that sort. But yeah, had actually that particular thought in my mind always, like I have to be in a position where any of the internship, if it is coming to our department, or for any of the AC specific position, would be able to join that. So for that sake I work. But yeah, for other people, let us assume a person who is very good at programming, truly speaking, and he is not able to maintain his or her CGPA. That is still not bad, because if you are a very good programmer, you are able to do pretty different from other guys being from the same department but not being able to program so well, and not being able to learn so many programming languages or the technologies which keep on coming all the times. Then of course that person is always going to be demanded by that particular specific domain specific company. So like even if you're having 7.5 above or 8, of course you'll be listed at least, okay, to be interviewed. The rest of the part is going to be exposed in the process of interview itself. Once you are shortlisted, no one worries about what is your CGPA, because ultimately what do they want? They want ultimately everything is to be measured in monetary terms. So once you're having those inherent qualities which are required by a particular company, and they need that particular person to be working for their monetary benefits, then of course they'll be picking you up. Even if of course they cannot take you if you are you have failed or something like that in the exam, but few of the very basic minimum criteria is there. But I never came across like particular company is going to be taking solely based on the CGP or your performance with respect to the marking norm. So you need to be very proficient and very in-depth thinker of whatever domain or sector of technology you are working into, or you want to be working into. So that's what matters at last.
Thank you, sir. I guess you are best with these advices. Like students currently who are undergraduates must follow this. So, sir, according to you, what are the factors that affect the shortlisting of one for any applied job or any internship? Because we always talk about that moment, our how we present ourselves or our knowledge, or in case while like we have presented very well, but the answers we have given regarding whatever the technical things were asked was not correct, or in case we, and vice versa. So what are the factors that affects the shortlisting?
Okay, so first and foremost, of course you have to be passing the basic criteria which is going to be set by any of the recruiting company or recruiting organization, so to speak. And then what matters is what I have already told you, is your concepts on particular subject or the domain you are getting interviewed for. Like if you have just assume if you have very good understanding of computer architecture, the full flow about the program execution, fetching, and then address mapping, all those things, then of course, and the point is that you people should never get disheartened when they are going into depth of that particular thing and then you are not able to answer. That is not to be worried of. Why? Because they'll be going into depth. If you have that kind of capability, they also know about yours, they start interviewing you, of course they'll never stop. I mean, like, of course if I'm there, I'll never stop. Why? Because I also have to measure the depth of that particular person's technical understanding of that particular topic. See, somewhere it has to stop. I mean, like, if just ask what it is, and if you're not able to answer, I'll skip that. Or anybody does like that only. So whoever will be recruiting, so I'll tell you one of my experiences. I had actually given 5 opportunities or 5 slots. Actually, these are the 5 teams who used to interview from the Intel. This is how it used to work at that time when we were getting interviewed for this internship in Intel. So 5 slots were given. I thought, oh my god, these 5 topics are there. Am I supposed to give the interview 5 times just to join this for an internship or what? Then after first this interview, I thought, okay, it has gone well. Most probably there is a chance. But in second interview, you won't understand, or you won't realize what kind of grilling I was done. That person started with the C programming execution and went till so much depth that I was not even able to answer his consecutive 4 to 5 questions. Then I mean, like, it was finished 20 minutes. I thought, okay, I'm done now. I mean, like, Intel is not going to be at least taking me. But in the next interview, the person who was supposed to take my interview for 30 minutes went for 56 minutes completely. And that interview was completely based on this computer architecture plus information theory now. And there I performed pretty well, apart from one or two, very small things, like with respect to the register, particular register or opcode in this computer architecture when you'll be doing assembly programming, that I missed. So that's how it works there. I mean, like, there were three teams. Wherever I was suitable, actually they were supposed to take me. But therefore, with respect to second interview, I am telling you, I was not able to answer. So it got off in 20 minutes. Where I was able to answer it, they went till quite depth in that particular subject, and they kept on asking me for 56 minutes. And he also given compliment that, okay, you extended it from your end. So that's how it matters. But one very tricky part here is always try to limit yourself while giving your interview with respect to the technical part. You have to speak what you know about. Don't have to speak, even if you want to show them off, like, okay, I need know this topic. No, never go towards that. Wherever you are having the command, always try to take that forward. Like, I had good understanding of computer architecture's particular topics. So he asked me about one of the topics where I had lot of readings, and I had done a lot of readings. I had actually worked upon that. He asked me one thing, I given him 2 or 3 points more there. So I dragged that particular interview for next 20 minutes just because of my reading which I had done that particular topic, and that was of course very architectural critical info. So when I dragged it for 20 minutes, of course it's going to help me. So always try to put your foot forward where you have the command. Okay, it's gonna stand me, not gonna fall me.
Okay, sir.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I guess this was the mantra for you to overcoming the fear factors of that interview.
Yeah.
So since like that you have mentioned that you have got the internship from training and placements, from the campus itself. So what are the views regarding that? And do you think, since you were the part of that TNP as well, so do you think that getting into a club or sales hampers the academics?
Okay, so let me tell about that particular story as well. Before college, I had never joined any competition anywhere in my preschooling, schooling, or in my 12th. So the first place where I had done any kind of management activities or the participation activities was in my college itself, the NIT. Had never participated because events didn't used to happen in the kind of college I used to study till my 12th standard. So in NIT, in the second year, I was given an opportunity to join TNP. So I thought, okay, because see, as an undergraduate student, you're not in this research, so you have a lot of time. Truly speaking, we don't have so much work apart from academics. I mean, like, how much reading or academics you'd be doing? I mean, like, 24 hours. There's so much time. What else you'd be doing? If you are eager to learn, if you are eager to just nourish yourself or nurture yourself with other qualities which are not inherent in us, then of course we'll have to cross our boundaries. So truly speaking, I was not the fit for the TNP cell till that time. But someone said, it is not talent which always nurtures you. Few times it is also hard work. Okay, so hard work few times beat talent, and that's what happened there with respect to that particular domain. So when I mean like just as a junior I joined then in TNPCL. Somehow DT sir or respected sir thought that okay, I'd be able to contribute there. I don't know why I thought that, but then I just joined training placement cell, and thanks to all my colleagues who supported in the process of being able to work there in the training cell and giving me the opportunity with the responsibilities which I had to perform. So it was quite learning, enriching, and exposing myself towards other things which were there apart from academics, and that is pretty necessary. If anyone is given a chance to be the part of TNPCL, should never give second thought. Of course that person should join, because somehow or in multifaceted ways, I'll say they'll be able to enrich themselves, and that's gonna be actually helping them a lot when they'll be joining the professional world, the corporate world, or even if they're gonna be going for UPSC or any other exams, competitive exams. That's going to serve a lot when the interview and all those things are going to be happening.
Thank you so much, sir, for this suggestion. And DT sir must be thinking about that. He has made a very correct. Actually, he is very good at making decisions, but now he will be very proud on this decision, like to making you the coordinator. So now, sir, we want to request you to give some suggestions to the EC students.
Okay, so most of the things I have already given in the initial introductory remarks itself. But yeah, for EC students, I'd say, see, whatever topics or the subjects you're having, like starting with the electronics, basics, electrical, and then you'd be going for information theory, other subjects like signal systems, digital electronics. These are very basic subjects. So you people have to don't think about like it's not going to be helpful in any of the fields. The very important or the very disturbing point or the thought we are always having, like how we are going to be able to use these things into our placement, or see, if someone is going for the GATE exam or SC exam, of course that person doesn't have to worry about, because that person will have to go through the subjects whichever are there. I mean, like, there is no any other substitute. But for the person who is aspiring to be in the corporate world after their studies as an undergraduate student, they'll have to be at least proficient in few of the subjects pretty well, like in computer architecture, and someone is willing to go for silicon design or VLSI, then have to be doing a bit of Verilog, VSDL coding, that sorts of things. But I would always say, please stick to the basics. That's all. I mean, like, everything you can create or establish on that particular strong foundation, which will be getting through the understanding of basics of any of the respective departments where all other juniors also put it to.
Thank you so much, sir, for this suggestion. Sir, this was a suggestion for the EC undergraduates. What if you have to go back into the time and you have to, Mr. Amal Kumar, a bias engineer, has to give advice to undergraduate Amal Kumar? So what will be that?
Okay, it's a bit pretty tough question, I'll say. So the suggestions, the advice I would give, I don't think that I didn't do in the college what I had to do in getting into Intel, and I don't think that I have not done what was supposed to be there in any of the person is gonna get placed in Intel, truly speaking, because what I had was sufficient to be able to make it in Intel. Yeah, but the same advice I have given to you people would be giving to myself if I were the juniors like you. The same advices. What I did was truly important, and would not urge you to do in the same manner, of course, because everyone is having their own style of functioning or doing things, and that should be there, because not to lose the inherent quality, you need to be yourself with few of the required things which you need to be done in the process. So that's what I would say. I mean, like, I'm not able to recall anything which I could give differently to me, but yeah.
Yes.
I
Oh,
would say one thing. I would say one thing. I would say one thing. Would have been better if I would have performed any research project in the college, or would have gotten any of the papers published. That would have been very yes. With respect to my studies, if I want to take it further from here to higher like MS or PhD, then that would be very beneficial. Apart from that, I don't think I'm not able to recall other things. Sorry for that.
it's okay, sir. So, sir, before wrapping up this episode, we want to know about your views, your opinions about this Alumni Talk series Confluence 2.0.
Oh, it's truly amazing. I mean, like, first of all, it gives honors and the kind of feeling to all our alumni who have passed the college and have gotten into different various places in, the whole world across the globe. Some would be in US, some would be in Germany, some would be here in Intel or in India and various other companies, would be able to again have those good reminiscences of their undergrad standard, and that itself is quite good feeling to have, and to know, I mean, like, and to see your institute growing from the phase we were at that time, struggling for many things, striving for many things, and then to reach till this phase, we are able to conduct these conferences and these interfaces. That gives a lot of inspiration to us as well, and we are truly grateful and thankful to our all juniors who have been doing all these things since we have passed our own bachelor degree. So I would say thanks to everyone, like our teachers, our juniors, faculty members, and the director of our own college. So that is truly good. I wish you all very well in this pursuit of getting all these conferences coming.
Thank you so much, sir, for all these words, and your insights are also very valuable. So, thank you so much. Well, sir, due to time constraints, we have to wrap up here only. So, sorry. I hope we could get the opportunity to grab more knowledge and information from you in future. But I'm very glad that I've invested my time in this wonderful conversation with you, sir. And I'm definitely sure that the viewer sitting next to the screen must be thinking the same I have mentioned. So thank you so much, sir, for sharing your inspiring outlook and innovative viewpoints with us and making this episode successful. Thank you so much, sir, for being for your time and this enlightening discussion. Thank you so much. And I also want to thank all the viewers of the Rignating for continuing this journey with us and staying tuned till the third episode of Confluence 2.0. I wish this bond continues till the end, and I want to express my sincere gratitude to the president and the mentor of the club, Dr. Dhananjay Tripathi, sir, and the senior members for lending their hands for guidance and the gratifying support. The special thanks goes to the organizing committee without whom it would not be possible to make it happen. Thank you for handling all the entire backstage work and for being a standing firm. So thank you so much, everyone. It is at the end of the day, I want to mention that it is very good things, good that good things never end, and but it keep us awaiting for the next. So, following this, we will be back with another exciting episode of Confluence 2.0, and we'll continue this journey with some more brilliant minds of NIT Sikkim. But till then, stay safe, keep learning, and stay tuned with the Rignating. And yeah, do not forget to smile underneath your mask. So, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot. Truly honored.
Yeah, thank you, sir.